Welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining, and maybe you can welcome me. And welcome everybody to our second webinar on it's Year of Healing, but we basically cover the questions that you submit. We very lightly edit them. We've mostly not edited them. We will try to cover as many questions as we can. Chris, it's your floor.
I just say I'm really thankful to be here again. I'm seeing everybody kind of joining in the room, and thankful. Feel free to throw things in the chat should you have anything that is not being understood or need some help from me. My goal here in my role is to just be the listening post for Amit, and I'll pose the questions that you've brought forward again in an unedited fashion. The only thing that I've done is I've arranged them into kind of areas of thought. The reason I've done that is because we often might find that the answering of one question might actually succeed in answering another, in which case then we'll go on to the next question. Right now, I've got the questions that you've posed this week in 4 sections: stress and anxiety, personal health, relationships with others, and personal growth. And I think we'll just start right into stress and anxiety, Amit, if you feel ready.
Sure, absolutely. And the way we try to approach this is basically it's like a dinner table conversation. It's not a formal, I will not present a PowerPoint or a p-value. I've read the questions, but we do not do a very structured thought process around like, this is how we're going to answer. It's what comes to our head at that moment. So it's very spontaneous. Right. Thank you.
So our first question then: when facing major stressors that are open-ended or long-term in nature, how can one best avoid worry and anxiety in their related daily thoughts?
So open-ended and long-term stressors, which is like the definition of so many of these stressors that humans face. Animals often face transient stressors, chased by a predator and you escape, that sort of thing, or you know, a day of bad weather. And animals also don't have the wonderful ability that we have to think and imagine and actually consciously plan many times. So long-term stressors, you know, war, famine, poverty, chronic illness, of course, COVID-19. So I think it's natural for us to experience stress, because these are a complex of stressors, because there's a lot of things happening that, let's say in a war, a lot of different experiences happen that are stressful. So then the way I like to think is there's the 3 groups of challenges that come. The first one is annoying. Annoying is like in the context of our current pandemic stressor, if you cannot go to a favorite restaurant for a meal, it's annoying, right? The second one can be maddening or infuriating. You can send your child to the school. It's impacting your child's learning. That's pretty infuriating for a lot of people. And the third one is threatening or terrorizing. You know, the prospect of catching an infection and landing up in the ICU. So those are the 3 groups of challenges we face in general. And sometimes it helps to categorize in which group my stressor is coming at this moment stressor. So what is annoying? You can visit to a favorite restaurant. My back pocket idea is to ask myself, will it matter in 5 years? If it won't matter in 5 years, it's not worth my time to fret over today. It's not worth more than 5 minutes. It does not belong in my brain's real estate. Your brain is a very precious real estate, more precious than the Fifth Avenue lots. And so if you had a lot on Fifth Avenue or a shop on Fifth Avenue, you'll not probably put a dumpster on it. But our brain, which is a more precious real estate than that, we allow non-rewarding, non-nourishing thoughts to come into it. So you have to be very, very picky about what thoughts you're allowed to stay there. Negative thoughts will come, but you don't let them stay. So for the annoying stressors, will it matter in 5 years? If it won't matter in 5 years, it's not worth my time. For the maddening and infuriating stressors, I try to reframe very quickly. So very quick story. I know personally 2 people who are alive today because they missed their flight. The day they missed their flight because of a computer glitch or whatever, they were very angry when they missed their flight. And they were angry for like 2 hours only to realize that ended up saving their life. So I try to remember their story. And with that, I try to keep in mind that an adversity may be preventing a catastrophe. If there is a person in front of me who is upset, it's a call for help. So you try to reframe and try to, first of all, accept what is, which is stress is your struggle with what is. Accepting what is handling stress. And if there is any way you can reframe it and find a positive meaning. I once, in the year 2000 stock market crash, I lost a significant bit of money, and I was pretty upset. And I said, and this actually happened, I said, how do I reframe this? And I said, well, if I had sold these stocks like 2.5 days ago, I would have saved enough money for a new car, and I would have bought that car, crashed, and died. So I'm so glad I lost all that money, and it actually worked. So trying to reframe for the maddening or infuriating stressors, with trying to find what is right within what is wrong. For the terrorizing or threatening stressors, I think it always helps to first understand what is causing my stress and then go towards logistical solutions. For example, in the midst of pandemic, I've been talking a lot about immune resilience. Can I work on upping my overall well-being and take enough micronutrients, sleep enough, let go of adversarial relationships, exercise optimally, avoid any toxins getting into my body, and of course manage stress in relationships and be a little happier to improve my immunity. Right? So handle the logistical issues, and then try to, first of all, have self-compassion when you're going through a difficult situation. You do not have to immediately feel up and happy and upbeat right away. Take help from others, connect with like-minded people, tend and befriend, and if there is a need, take professional help. And for those so inclined, nurture faith, prayer. All of those are helpful. So for those who have a positive anchor in any of these, I sometimes look as life being a difficult surgery, and faith is a wonderful anesthetic for those who, so the surgery still happens, but it happens with less pain. Faith, I don't want to be very specific about it, in a more generic sense, faith that gives you hope, faith that helps you think about something larger than you, that cares about you, that nurtures you. So that is how I look at chronic ongoing stressors. And while the tea still remains bitter, but putting a little bit of this honey makes it a little bit more palatable and drinkable.
Thanks, Amit. The next question actually takes a slightly different turn on this, and I've noticed that you address this from the point of view of overcoming or bolstering yourself for stress. The next question asks, many times changes in life bring anxiety, frustration, and stress. How do I welcome these situations?
How do you welcome changes? How do you welcome the anxiety, frustration? Well, let me talk about change. So changes are of 4 types. We talk a lot about change, actually, and I've given this a little bit of thought. I shared a presentation at one point to a company about, change management. So change can be a simple desirable change, which is small, such as a new project. You desire it, and it's generally small unless it's a massive project. Change can be desirable but big, such as relocation. Changing a job, for example. Change can be undesirable and small, such as a blocked sink. You don't want it, but it happens to us. And change can be undesirable and big, which is, a pandemic, which is severe illness, which is a massive financial issue, a relationship breakup that you really valued, So, for a change that is small and desirable, I think it is best to be the driver of such change. Choose such change because that is the kind of change which adds spice to your life. You welcome that. And I'm sure that's not the kind of change you're talking about. Change that is large but still desirable, such as relocation, except that there is going to be adversities, there is going to be frustrations happening, and it's a package deal. Whenever you're pursuing that kind of change, and it's a marker of growth in life. What I like to do is, when I'm facing a lot of uncertainty, a new city, a new team I'm working with, I try to find what is common, what is familiar in what seems novel. When I go to a new city, are the roads similar, traffic signs similar, people similar? Are the shops, the grocery stores similar to what I'm familiar with? So instead of getting overwhelmed by novelty, I focus on what is familiar to me, and that helps me absorb that change, which is large, much better. And remember why you have your why. Why am I doing this? Which is what drives acceptance. A change that is undesirable but small, such as a clogged sink, I think it's helpful to ask a question: why is this happening? As you're handling it, I mean, you certainly put the liquid to dissolve the sink, or hopefully you may have to call a plumber if hopefully it doesn't go on to that. But it sometimes helps to ask, why is that happening? Is my water hard, or am I losing too much hair, and am micronutrient deficient? So this is just a specific change, but sometimes it helps to ask. If I'm getting an angry email from a supervisor, do I need to up my skills? Is this the best place to work, or is this the best division for me to work? So that's how you handle. But the fourth kind of change, which is large and undesirable, that is the most stressful change. And there, very much what I shared about overall stress management applies. You handle the logistical part the best you can. In the context of a potential for an illness, you optimize your well-being. In the context of a financial issue, you optimize your finances, preserve what you can preserve. So handle the logistical part, identify where that challenge is coming from, and then with self-compassion and acceptance, find connection, find help, including professional help, and nurture the anchor of hope, courage, and faith. So that's how you can be proactive about change. When the change happens, sometimes ask yourself, what is causing me stress here? Is it demand resource imbalance, which is excessive cognitive and emotional load? Is it lack of control, or can I not find meaning in it? Sometimes it's all three. And if there is excessive cognitive and emotional load, try to optimize that load. If you find lack of control, try to control the controllable and let go of the rest. And if you can't find meaning, as you know, can mostly be discovered. It doesn't have to be invented. Try to find meaning in what seems meaningless. Having said that, there is going to be times when you want to just curl up in the basement and wait for one sunset to be over, or two sunsets to be over, and just give yourself time to recover from it. And we all have had those days. So have self-compassion.
It's really helpful, Amit. I'm in the middle of one of those big life changes right now myself, and I've found myself both in the curled up position and in the more optimistic position. Just recently, my job comes with a series of appointments, and one of those appointments is up in July. And so now I have to either A, move forward with the job as it is, or B, change it in some way. And that means change for my kids as they're coming into high school. That means my change for, all things surrounding that. I was really wrapped up in that recently, and I stopped and thought for a moment. I patterned myself back to the last 2 times I've had changes of this size that were without my control. And in both cases, though they seemed insurmountable at the time, they led to wonderful outcomes in time. And so I was actually able to just calm myself this week and walk into work and just enjoy the process and say, this adventure is going to bring me somewhere. And I'm excited for the adventure because I don't have examples of this turning into something that can't be overcome. So I'm definitely thinking a lot about the ideas that you've shared here today.
A question for you, Chris. When you climb a mountain, is it straight up or is it really a topsy-turvy circuitous path?
Oh, I usually at least have to tumble down a few times on that path as well.
Yeah,
so
right?
absolutely.
It's the exact path. And then when you've climbed on top, and if there's a path already created, when you look back and you see, then you can see, oh, there was that zigzag path to avoid that drop or to avoid that big boulder that was there, right? And so sometimes you can only, when you look back at life, you can see how you were guided appropriately. You were, as you know, there's this old story about, walking alone. You were held and you were guided with the path that is right for you. And so why edit the script you can't read? I choose not to edit the script I can't read. It'll flow with the script as it writes itself. And of course, you be a co-author.
And how do we welcome these situations, as the question asked? All I can say is, based on your zigzagging analogy, I think the best people in my life I met during zigzags. So I think I look forward to see what comes next. Next question for you, and last in the stress and anxiety space. What role does stress management and resilience play in my performance?
So when you're talking about performance, you're essentially using two main organs in the body, heart and brain, right? Your gallbladder is not helping your performance a whole lot, at least in the short term. You want a healthy gallbladder to absorb your fat, but so stress and resilience, they influence very strongly the health of your heart and your brain. We know heart is obvious. We know that when you have excessive stress, you have more inflammation. Your C-reactive protein is up. Your inflammatory markers are up. Your cholesterol, bad cholesterol goes up. Blood pressure goes up. There's more shear on the blood vessel wall. So your heart becomes less healthy. And it is more strained too. It has got more load to carry. What happens with brain is when you have excessive stress, your brain is not able to sustain focus in front of you. I don't know if you have experienced this. Sometimes you are getting late for a meeting and you can't find the car keys. And the car keys are right in front of you, but you can't find them because you are just frazzled. You are just not able to focus. And this used to happen to me more often that my wife, Richa, will pick up those keys and give them to me. And she would call that male pattern blindness. I don't know if you have male pattern blindness, Chris. So that's what stress does to you. It makes us, it's a strong word, it makes us temporarily stupid. I'm not able to focus. I'm not able to process complexity. I'm not able to think long term. I'm not able to recall what I have stored in my brain, what I have learned. When you're taking an exam, when you stress out, you know it, but it just doesn't come to you because your hippocampus is not really functioning well. Your hippocampus, which is the area of the brain that hosts memory, is not able to generate new neurons. Your prefrontal cortex starts atrophying. Your amygdala, which generates adrenaline or noradrenaline in the brain, becomes more active. So basically, it decimates your performance. You need a small amount of stress. You know, the curve between stress and performance is an inverted U curve. So a little bit of stress increases performance, and then you reach your max performance, and from there is loss of performance. Now, if you're going to be running a 100-meter sprint, somebody might argue that, or doing just physical job, then if you're high on cocaine, who knows, you might be doing better. You just need a lot of adrenaline, but probably not. But if you're doing complex work, which is perhaps what you're alluding to, where you have to really think and process and connect a lot of different dots, then excessive stress is going to hurt you. So finding ways to manage your stress and resilience is just the opposite of stress. Resilience is protective. And we've actually done a number of studies where we have looked at the impact of resilience on people's self-perception of their performance and, of course, relationships and risk for mental health. And resilience is really protective of you. It protects you from the adverse effect of excessive stress.
I hate to do it, but as long as you brought up cocaine and running, I have to bring up beer and pool. I'm reminded a little bit of in college. I always said that I could play pool like a shark with 2 beers. 1 beer I was too afraid. 3 beers I was not a good idea to play pool, and so and the idea is finding that window where you're challenging yourself out, where stress brings you out of your own fearfulness and into good action, but not so far that it buries you.
That's what I share many times with medical students. Have you ever been drowsy in an exam? And no. Have you been ever anxious in an exam? All the time. So the fact that you will be too calm to be succeeding in exam, that doesn't happen. Most of the time, we're not trying to increase our stress level. We're just trying to contain it. That's the issue. And I think it's just too much adrenaline. That's the issue that we are trying to contain.
Stepping into personal health and away from my darts and pool playing. I know from genetic testing that I have a higher risk of cancer. I have mostly come to realize that this has given me a gift to be proactive, but still at times I have fallen into a what if loop about the future. How do I balance the need to think about the present and be proactive with screening, but also leave the future to the future?
I used to live in Pacific Northwest, very close to the coast, 20 years ago. And it was a very small community, rural community, fishing community. And it was pretty much at sea level. So there was always this threat of tsunami. And there were tsunami warnings, there were tsunami detection systems, there were earthquake detection systems, and we had the whole tsunami path. I mean, we had to make sure that we knew what the path was so we could go high up on the mountain and that sort of thing. So when we first drove there, we didn't know the word tsunami actually when we went there first. And it was scary. But as we become familiar with it, we realized that, okay, we have to be just aware of it and then live our life. I think same is with someone who has a predisposition towards cancer because of a genetic predisposition. I think it is one thing that is good here. Of course, we would not want anyone to have such a predisposition, is that we have now systems to predict it. And you have this early warning system where you will be screened for it. And very likely, if this happens, it'll be picked up much sooner than it would have been otherwise. In fact, sometimes I have shared with patients who are struggling that with this predisposition, that because of this awareness and regular testing, you will probably not die of cancer. You'll probably die of old age or, something else, warm in bed, old age, past age 100, living a wonderful life. I do not mean to say that this is not stressful, but I think if you can see the element of light in that stress, where you can see that because of this awareness and because of the modern testing, I will be fine. And if that tsunami happens, I have early warning system. I'll be able to go to a mountain and I'll be okay. So if something happens, it'll be picked up on time and I will be able to, cure it sooner with minimal side effects compared to somebody else. See, majority of the cancer happens, as they say, 80% of breast cancer happens in those who have no known predisposition. And I haven't seen the most recent data in those people who are not being screened or who are not aware that this threat exists. It is picked up at an advanced stage, compared to those who are very good about screening. So keep that perspective in mind overall. Having said that, the beauty is, I mean, we can't prevent tsunamis and earthquakes and volcanoes, but we now know that we can at least decrease the risk of cancer by healthy lifestyle, by eating healthy, by exercising, by sleeping, by allowing ourselves to experience good, uplifting emotions, and sometimes positive relationships, living a life of purpose. All those things change our anti-cancer milieu in the body, inflammatory milieu in the body. So when you are telling your physical body that I'm having a good time on the planet, it will start preparing to keep you on the planet for a longer time, very much like you like to be in a party where you're having fun, right? So tell yourself that I'm having a good time on the planet, I'm fulfilling a meaning, take care of yourself well. And so invest all your energy in these cancer preventative strategies, while being reassured that because you're being screened, if this was to ever happen, it'll be picked up early, and because we have the technology for it, and you will be cured. Plus, a lot of times people worry about the future without counting the kind of help and support they will have. So I can assure you that if the adverse diagnosis happens, you will have the kind of support you cannot even imagine with respect to the medical professionals, doctors, nurses, social workers and such, therapists, with respect to your loved ones, your friends, your colleagues, and your neighbors. So keep that in the equation. You're not alone.
Thank you, Dr. Sood. I'm going to move past another question in that category, and because I believe you covered quite a bit of it, and in reference to time here. So, and I'm going to jump right into the next category: relationships with others. So many people in my circle are suffering emotionally from the aftermath of the political divisiveness and related daily events. I consistently try to steer conversation away from the negativity, yet I relate to the continuing stress and trauma of the events. How do I acknowledge their pain and be helpful at the same time?
That's a tough one, right? So part of this entails embracing differences. You do not expect a golden doodle and German shepherd to be the same, to have the same behavior. Those are two different breeds of dogs. Similarly, people have differences of opinion. It is, if you have someone who is physically, emotionally, and spiritually your twin, then you can expect they will have exactly the same thought, but that is not the case. So people have different genetic predisposition. They were raised by their parents with their values, they connected with friends, their neighborhood, they went to different schools and colleges, read different newspapers, attended different programs, had different role models. No wonder they're going to have a difference of opinion. So I think it is best to approach these situations with not focusing on that I am right, they're wrong. That's a common mistake most of us do. I mean, if you and I are arguing, Chris, and if I'm thinking I am right, Chris is wrong, you're thinking I am right, Amit is wrong, we won't reach anywhere, right? I think the best way to start your discussion is to assume the other person is right. Remember what this person means to you. And they are a wonderful person despite their political predisposition, but despite their political rhetoric or their political preference, right? So you start with focusing on trying to understand the other person, where they're coming from. Now, they may be meaning well, because you are meaning well, you're well-meaning, they are well-meaning, even though they may have partial understanding of the facts, or they may have facts that are just simply not true, but they in their gullible self believe those facts, right? So keep all this in mind and sometimes when I'm still not able to fully understand them, I ask myself, what is the residual value of this person despite this strong difference of opinion? And we know many people who have a different, let's say, political bent. And I say there's a high residual value. This is a good human being. Then I just continue to maintain that relationship. Our desire for people to agree with us, because when people agree with us, we feel validated. We feel worthy. We feel safe with those people, and that's why we want others to really have our own beliefs. But that's an exercise in futility. I think we have to embrace diversity. We have to embrace differences of opinion, as long as our ultimate goals are aligned. I think one of the core ultimate goal is to collectively build a kinder, more hopeful, better world for our planet's children, and the paths to that goal are going to be different. So our accepting and embracing each other, welcoming the differences, and focusing on what are our similarities, because there's something called human universals. While what separates us is maybe 0.01%, what unites us is 99.9%. So the more you can focus on that, and the more you can zoom out and think of the long term, the better. You want to add something to this, Chris? Because
I was just saying, we live this life. Both my wife and I happen to be the extreme minority politically within each of our larger families, and trying to find joy and love on family visits can be difficult and trying in times like these. And it's interesting. We've started applying the same exact methodology that I know you and I have discussed with regard to dealing with my mother and her advancing dementia. Redirection. So we bring, if we bring something to the center that we can talk about that has nothing to do with the political debate, we all literally clamor to get into that conversation. And usually it's somebody that we share and love. So if we talk about, did you see that that one of our children did this? And we can discuss that and throw our love for each other into that conversation about that person that we share. And I think that's a big part of it, is trying to redirect away from those paths and conversations that we get stuck in, right? We get stuck in talking points, and then we don't see that person holds something so deeply and important in common with us, the loving of another human being on this planet. And when we all admit, we love this person, well, then that's something we have, and so that's something that we've used a lot at our families. We'll just redirect the conversation to talk about something that we know we all love. It's easier for me to see joy in my mother and my father when I see my child through their eyes than when I see politics through their eyes.
And I think two additional points are, one is, where have you placed your identity? My identity with you is a friend and colleague. It's not based on our shared political beliefs. Then why do I want to force my political beliefs on you? My identity with my loved ones or friends is they are loved ones and friends, not that they have the exact political alignment with me. So there's no need to force. And the second thing that I've found useful is approaching this with a sense of curiosity more than judgment. Just be curious about what makes people believe what they believe in. What kind of, I've had someone decided to vote for somebody, and this is a very rational and very successful person. And why are you choosing to vote for this person? Oh, because I think, or not vote for this person because I think this person is very rude. But we've seen like 30-second clip of this person on the television. With that, we make that judgment. We make such quick judgments of different people with such little data. In fact, I don't know anybody fully. I don't know you, Chris. I don't know anybody on the call here because I don't know. We capture everyone for a very small slice of time. I think all my my thoughts are hypotheses, all my actions are experiments. Your every thought is a hypothesis, your every action is an experiment. So having that modicum of humility and openness and curiosity, with that, if you approach the world, then even though you may have differences with others, they will not be felt as threatening, and you will not be threatened by others. And in the process, you will learn, and you will find a way to, as they say in Washington, work across the aisle. You'll find a common purpose.
I'm going to take this a little deeper, and this is one of the more difficult questions on our list this week.
I think the last one was difficult, but go ahead.
So, so how can we as parents and grandparents reach our children who have been blocked by our children who have not let us connect with them? Our precious grandchildren who we would love to communicate, but we may be forbidden. My husband was in a race car accident and fully recovered, yet our son and daughter agree Dr. Google is more insightful about traumatic brain injury than our brilliant team at Mayo Clinic. So this seems like a more specific and difficult question.
Questions there. Let's focus on the first question. How do you engage with your grandkids when your kids do not want you to engage? At least until the grandkids turn 18, their parents will have fair bit of control in who they engage with. I'll tell you a story. This is a true story about someone I met. She shared that good person. She and her husband, very rational person, very enlightened person. And she said, here's the problem. When my father-in-law comes, he drives my kids without seatbelt on. And because he grew at a time when there was really no focus on seatbelts. So I've told him like 8 times, but there's only so much I can tell him. So I have no choice but to bar him and from seeing. He has very different attitude about hygiene. He doesn't like to wash his hands after he goes to the bathroom. And I just can't stand it. It disgusts me, but I can't tell him about it. So sometimes there is these unsaid, unspoken, differences that are creating miscommunications, and because with change in generations, change in resources, change in our level of dependence on across the generations. Because 200 years ago, we really depended on being a joint family, each other's help. But now everybody is independent and has the resources to take care of themselves. So I think it helps to ask before blaming them, what can I do different so that I am perceived as safe and loving in the company of grandchildren? Is there something I can do differently? So that is the first step, instead of blaming. Because if you think you're blaming your children or grandchildren, you will reach nowhere. It's not going to work. You will just keep, butting your head against the wall. It's not going to work. So the first step is, what can I do differently? And in that context, maybe sometimes you can ask a direct question if you have that communication that, is there something I'm doing which is not right, which you would rather have me do? And you may be blind to it because we are blind to blind spots. We're blind to our blind spots. We don't even know what we're doing wrong unless we are told sometimes, because that's a norm for us. Like 2 fish swimming in a water, small little fish, and the big fish comes around and says, oh, the water is so warm today. And the little fish look at the big fish and say, oh, what water? Because they're in the water, so they don't know they are in the water. The second part is trust and love missing between you and your children? If trust and love is missing between you and your children, then it is going to be very difficult, because they are probably conveying that energy to your grandkids. And then it's going to be difficult for you to go past that shell that they have created. You can start off with the right kind of gifts. You create you share something that you and the grandkids can engage with together. But I would say the first step is to improve your relationship with your children. in order for you to have a connection with your grandchildren. And I think the other part is we are really biologically, we feel like we should really spend as much time with our grandkids, but love other grandkids as your grandkids to compensate for that. I don't know if you have any other ideas. I've struggled with every time I've talked to a few patients who have struggled with it. They've tried a few things, but if you sneak past or do something else, it can lead to even worse relationship situations, I feel. I would love, whoever asked this question, I would love to sit with you in person and try to understand the dynamics of the situation, because I don't know the details of the situation. How is your relationship with your children? What are their perceptions? What are their beliefs? Was there stuff that happened between you and them as they were younger? Is there a reason they don't trust and love you? Can that be fixed? Can you have an open conversation, or is there no conversation happening? I'm assuming grandkids would love to connect with you. What have they shared with the grandkids and such? So it's complex. It's a very complex situation, which needs a lot of specific details to address. But I sort of try to share the generalities.
Yeah, the follow-up statements in this question really appear to deal with a very specific situation. I've been doing a lot of reflection on this question in the last couple of days since I was organizing this in his spots, and I know that I've shared with you, and several on these calls may have heard that my mother-in-law is dealing with a glioblastoma, and we as a family have been kind of struggling around choices of care, and that seems to relate somewhat to the second part. And my mother-in-law has a very different opinion of medicine than I do, and really what I finally landed on is, and I went back a lot through my notes from the SMART program, from other things, how do I address this, because it's infuriating, because why wouldn't we do the right thing, my right thing? And I landed on acceptance, because it happened to be a Wednesday. And the idea of empowered interaction with what is, right? So trying to use what is, and realizing that once I heard her, and instead of trying to change that, interact how we can, and enter the situation saying these are her choices. And I'm not going to agree with them, but I'm going to interact with what is. I'm going to accept the landscape. And we have had 3 or 4 visits in a row of the most beautiful times as a family. We're not addressing that issue because her choices have been made. But we are seeing each other then in that new accepting landscape, and it's been beautiful. I can accept being wrong even about those choices. I'm not sure medically I am, but for right now, what we're choosing feels right as a family.
See, we spend all our life trying to prove we are right, while the world is trying to be impressed by how kind we are, not how right we are. So it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to accept that. I think every relationship is like a big mural. At any moment, what part of the mural are you focusing on? I think that's the key. The way I like to work is I like to assume, barring exceptions, and 99% of the time, I just like to assume that the other person is right. There's something I'm not understanding here. I do, and it really works, because even when they are wrong, you can find what is right within what that wrong is. You don't threaten them, and they are more open to accept your suggestion because you are validating them. Right? So, and relationships is where all life happens. I think if you succeed in relationships, you've succeeded in every aspect of life. So it's very important, these things to understand. See, relationship 101 is, I don't like you for who you are. I like you for how I feel about myself in your presence. So in this particular question, if your children do not love themselves in your presence, they are going to be negatively affected by you. And I think the second question, just to briefly address that, there is intergenerational trust and also lack of trust. I think the younger generation doesn't trust the older generation with technology, for example, and partly that's true because the older generation is not that tech savvy, and they feel like the older generation has very different ideas about safety, about hygiene, about life's preferences, and so on. And that's where it comes. That's where the differences come. I think it is best for us to focus on different part of the mural, embrace each other's strengths and weaknesses, and recognize that here is one thing you can imagine. If somebody in your family bothers you, let's say if I have a bad kidney stone and I'm in severe pain, will this person be super joyous and give $1,000 to charity because Chris has, kidney stone? Or will this person want you not to have the pain? And if the answer is this person who really criticizes me, but deep down cares about me and will want me not to be in pain, that's all what you need. That's enough to love that person. So change your thresholds, change your perspectives.
All right, we're going to slide into the last space here today, Amit, and that's personal growth. And there's a start, and then there's a pretty deep jump. And so we're gonna start on personal growth. I enjoy the daily insights and the personal experiences you attach to them. However, I feel too quickly I forget them and struggle to carry them with me throughout the day.
Oh, this is thank you for asking. This is the simplest question, I feel. All you need, so you're dipping your feet in water, but you really want to take a swim. That's what you have to do. Turn the water on and just either take a swim or take a good shower. So put all your senses in it. Have a journal and write your thoughts in the journal. The daily insight that you hear, or the audio, summarize it somewhere and write and in your own words. Tweet on it, share it with somebody. I tweet on it fairly frequently, once every 2 days. So maybe you can comment on it. Join with someone else to reflect on some of these ideas. So involve multiple aspects, integrate this in multiple aspects of your life. And of course, take a deeper dive in resilience in general. Our memory is a bit like Lego. See, if you have new piece of information, just as in a Lego toy, the new information goes and sticks into the new piece sticks into the old piece, so you need that connection. Similarly, new information goes into the memory and sticks to something that is familiar, that gives that new information context and meaning. So if you create this language of resilience deep inside you, then this new information will go and stick in that language very quickly, and you will not forget that. So you need that vocabulary, you need that practice, you need that experience, that learning, and the deeper you go, the easier, the simpler this will become. Just take a swim instead of just dipping your feet in water. So
we've stepped from toe dip to swim, and here comes the cliff dive. Okay. Do you think each life has a purpose? And how do I find out what it is?
Each life has a purpose. So let me ask you this: does every vote count? 120 million votes. If 1% didn't vote, it won't change the outcome. But if every person believed that, then the outcome, then we would not have an election, right? Just as every vote counts, every life matters. We have 35-40 trillion cells in the human body. Liver has 250 billion cells. Heart has 2 billion cells. Brain has 86 billion cells. Each neuron is precious. Each neuron contributes to a network of neurons, and those networks join with other networks to have a larger system, which helps you focus, which helps you hear, which helps you see. So each neuron is precious. and is contributing to the collective purpose of the network in which that neuron is sitting. So similarly, our life, each person's life has a purpose, and it is contributing to a collective purpose. And so that's why I think the more you are focusing on serving a collective purpose, the deeper your life, the more fulfilling your life, the happier your existence, the more connected you feel with others, right? It's a great question. It's a great question to think about, because so there's two questions. One is, what is the ultimate meaning of life? That's a very difficult question to answer. I try not to answer that question, because for me to understand the ultimate meaning of life, which explains everything, I need to sample the totality of life from beginning to end and across the space, and I just can't do it. I only know the first word in a 100-volume encyclopedia. So I can't answer that question. But I think a better question is, how can I make my life more meaningful? So I think one of the best ways to make your life more meaningful is to think about you as part of a network. What is the collective purpose of that network, and how can I contribute to it? To me, one of the most important part of human life is what is our core evolutionary responsibility, is to collectively build a kinder, hopeful, happier world for our planet's children. That's my North Star. That I feel is what our previous generation did, and they fought the wars so we could play piano, and that's what we need to do. So we build technology so they can watch their screens in autonomous driving cars or something. So right. So I think that's what we have to do, is to serve a collective purpose, believe that there is a purpose. If you believe you do not have a purpose, if you believe that your vote doesn't count, then you will not live with a strong sense of being. And focus on service and love, which are your core meaning. Not the means are all the details. The means keep changing, but the core meaning is service and love. We are all agents of service and love, collectively building a kinder, more hopeful world for our planet's children. So contribute to that meaning. Believe that there is a strong sense of purpose, and that will give you a more fulfilling life.
Thank you, Amit. Parting shots. Anything that you want to share, and then as we're wrapping it up?
Oh, I thought I spoke a lot too much already. Do you?
I think you spoke just enough. I don't know if anybody else does this, but I'm taking notes like the whole time, and I'm not really a note taker, but it's just me organizing my thoughts, because I confuse a lot of these things, and they each time we talk, I feel like I'm a little closer to some clarity on how to approach these things. And I know that last question, I had means and meaning underlined as my thoughts, and really thinking about in terms of oftentimes we think when we ask about purpose in life, we're asking for the means, right? As and I really think you hit it there with the North Star and finding meaning. And then we can find many means to that meaning, right? But that's a tough one for me. I'm still working through those kind of ideas. I'm looking forward. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, what is the societal need? What is my core strength, and what gives me joy? I think part of that question was, how do I find that purpose? At least the means you can find. What does the society need? What is my strength, and what gives me joy? At the intersection of it, you can find what is your means. This means will participate in a network and contribute to meaning, at least on planet Earth, building a better world for our planet's children. But know that everything that you paint will eventually be painted over. Every software is replaced by the next generation of software. So that will help you with humility, but you are part of that building block. You you contribute it to the next generation. So there is a way that your legacy stays, that will keep you inspired, but knowing that it will eventually be painted over will keep you humble. So remaining inspired and humble, I think that's the best way to be. Well, that will be my parting shot, Chris.
All right. Well, wonderful. I'm just looking forward to the next round.
Remain inspired and humble in this week, in the coming week. Thank you. Thank you.
And for those of you who asked any questions and such like that you didn't hear directly addressed, I tried to do as much redundancy coverage as possible, but feel free to send a note and I'd be happy to adjust a little bit the way we're doing this in the future.
Thank you. And we will be posting, hopefully, the recording somewhere, and we'll send you an email so that I can listen to what I said, because I just despise listening to me, though. It's not the most. I would rather have someone else criticize me, because I always keep finding, there was too many eye blinks. Oh, that smile looks a little nasty to me, or whatever.
Nobody loves the sound of their own voice. I worked on the radio for years, and I cannot handle the sound of my own voice. That's an interesting issue in that particular line of work. Maybe it's why I left. Anyway, thank you very much, Amit.
Thank you, Chris. Take care. Bye-bye.